Hi guys, in today's session, I'll be conducting or facilitating Unit Standard 114636. The title of this unit standard is Demonstrate an Understanding of Preventative Maintenance, Environmental and Safety Issues in a Computer Environment. Uh, Looking at this unit standard, the purpose of this unit standard is to provide you as a learner with the necessary knowledge related to demonstrating an understanding of preventative maintenance, environmental and safety issues in a computer environment. So the outcomes at the end of this unit standard, you will be able to demonstrate an understanding of use of preventative maintenance measures and procedures of computer hardware, demonstrate the understanding of the use of safety measures and procedures of a computer working environment, and also explain environmental protection measures and procedures of a computer working environment. Looking at the level of this unit standard, it's level 3. The credits, it has only 6 credits. It's in the field of information technology and computer science. So let's dive into our first session. The first session, which is the outcome based one, demonstrate an understanding of the use of preventative maintenance measures and procedures. So looking at the preventative maintenance products and procedures can range depending on what you are referring to. So in this instance, preventative maintenance can be a key to keeping computer systems from experiencing serious problems such as data loss and hardware failure. So in this instance, we're referring to when we say the word preventative maintenance, we refer to hardware failures and data loss within a computer system. And also in preventative maintenance is the regular and systematic inspection, cleaning, and replacement of worn parts, materials, and systems. Effective preventative maintenance reduces part, material, and system faults and keeps hardware and software in good working condition. So, so those are some of the items. Like for instance, I'm currently having an issue with my external hard drive. In terms of the preventative maintenance measure and procedures needs to be followed, I need to repair my hard drive drivers in order for me to use this hard drive within this laptop. So when I show details, I'm hoping it can outline in detail what I need to do. In normal circumstance, you find that you are perfect, you know. This is your logs, your hardware index logs, where it will provide in detail what needs to happen. So the thing is, this my laptop is a bit running slow, so I'm hoping it can provide in detail what needs to be saved. So this is one more of the issues that that's a reference in terms of maintenance. So also, I just wanted to allude in terms of what you guys have created in terms of your LAN environment, um, things that you need to like, your maintenance in terms of from your LAN network, how your data is being stored and how you can prevent in terms of data loss, hardware failures, where you find like your internal hard drives are not working within certain workstations or computer nodes, how you go about in terms of regular and systematic inspection, like cleaning and replacement of worn parts, materials, and the system cleaning of the system. You have your antivirus, where you go through a process where you just search for malwares within your system. And also keeping your hardware and software in a good working condition. That's where you have monitoring tools, like for instance, in this aspect, doesn't give me much, where it will in detail tell you what needs, uh, doesn't think it's okay. In this instance, we've got an event viewer. Let's check an audit failure, error. There's no much. So in this instance, this will tell you more precisely about the errors that are happening within your system. So I just wanted to check an event more precisely on the hard drive. So okay, let's move to Windows logs, security, setup, system. Okay, let's check off your hardware. There's no such, so it's still fine. Let's hope whilst I'm still continue with the session, on the other side it'll just prompt out the data. So moving on to slide 3, preventative maintenance plans are developed based on at least two factors: computer location or environment. We've got dusty environments such as construction sites require more attention than an office environment. Why is it so? Dusty environments, we know that our workstations or computer nodes will be exposed to dust, so it will need that office layout to be, or office park or office site to be cleaned on a regular basis, and proper procedure needs to be followed. Computer use, the high traffic networks such as your varsity network might require additional scanning and removal of malicious software and unwanted files. You, since you have went through the phases where you have been a student also, you have discovered or been exposed to some students having to, wanting to put files, there certain data to the workstations of the varsity. So uh, such networks will be exposed to malicious or unwanted files, malicious software where you want to, install your Visual DJ. I'm just making an example, and you find within a Visual DJ software, it contains XE files that maybe the workstations at your university that you are enrolled to does not allow such a type of files to be installed into their workstations. So those are more of your malicious softwares. Also, you've got regular preventative maintenance, which reduces potential hardware and software problems, computer downtime, repair cost, and the number of equipment failures. Like for instance, what I'm experiencing now, every time whenever I try to use my external hard drive, I get a prompt up where I have to repair and update the drivers. And whenever I do that, I have to suffer about 30 minutes or an hour where the updates are running. So in most cases, because of I'm using my laptops from 8 up until AM, early hours of the morning, I have to, you know, uh, cancel the process, because of that time doesn't allow me to go about in terms of fixing the issue. So having a maintenance, it reduces, those hardware problems where each and every time, maybe after 4 days, you check maybe your 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 storage devices are being monitored, are being maintained in terms of, data, whether the drivers are updated and so forth. And also it improves data protection, equipment life and stability, and saves money. Preventative maintenance dust, you need to clean and replace building air filters regularly to reduce the amount of dust in the air. this is true, it depends. So on your office space, these are just elements that we need to, integrate, keep in mind of whenever we, uh, have our office, building our office, have that intellect of understanding what's actually happening behind the scenes. you know Air filters regularly need to be reduced, the amount of dust in the air, or need to be replaced, air filters. Also, you need to use a cloth or a duster to clean the outsides of the computer case. If using a cleaning product, put a small amount onto a cleaning cloth and not onto the case, and then wipe the outside of the case. So these are just one of the processes or the procedures that you need to follow whenever you maintain preventative maintenance, whenever you're cleaning. You need to remove dust from the inside of a computer using a combination of compressed air, a low airflow ESD vacuum cleaner, and a small lid free cloth. We'll get into the ESD in the later parts of the slide. Slide number 5, you need to use a lint-free cloth to remove any dust left behind on the component. When you clean a fan inside a keyboard, inside not a keyboard, inside a case, you need to clean a fan with a compressed air. Hold the fan blades in place. This prevents overspinning the rotor or moving the fan in the wrong direction. Moving on to internal components, we've got the basic list of components to inspect for dust and damage. The CPU, heatsink, and the fan assembly. The fan should spin freely. The fan power cable should be secure, and the fan should turn when the power is on. So if the fan does not power on when the case or when your desktop is on, then you'll have a problem with the CPU. Your RAM, your random accessory memory modules. The modules must be seated securely in the RAM slots. Ensure that the retaining clips are not loose. So what are they talking about? This is your motherboard. These are your RAM slot that they are talking about. It should be securely on the motherboard, as you can see. The CP the CPU fan, the heatsink. This is the CPU heatsink, and it goes up to here in the motherboard. So whenever you clean it, as alluded on this the PowerPoint presentation, uh, you need to hold the fan should spin freely. There's a section where, okay, when you clean a fan with a compressed air, hold the fan blades in place. This prevents overspinning the rotor and moving the fan in. You need to keep that in place. So these are just your fan whenever you clean your fan. And also, the most important part is understanding what is what into the motherboard. So this is just I've provided a image where it illustrates your RAM slots, your CPU, which goes in here, the 8-pin power connector, 24 power pin connector, and so forth. So these are just the naming in terms of understanding further what is what I'm talking about whenever I mention these on the slide. Also, we have the internal components, your RAM modules. As I've alluded, this are your slots where your RAM, you can insert your RAM. And also on slide 8, you've got power devices. Inspect power stripes, surge suppressors, which is the surge protectors, and the UPS, uninterrupted power supply devices. And also you need to make sure the devices work properly and that there is a clear ventilation. Keyboard and mouse, use compressed air to clean the keyboard, mouse, and the mouse sensor. So on the slides, this is just an image of a motherboard, and also the RAM modules. These are your RAM modules, and these are inserted on this RAM slots. You insert these on the RAM slots. As you can see here, there is a part where you should it correlates with the RAM slots. As you can see here, this part, how is it designed? There's sort of like a hole through it, and you can insert it just straightly, carefully, so you can just insert it on these RAM slots. And also we've got the storage devices. We've got your hard disk, your RAM, your ROM, your CD, the floppy disk, memory card, USB, and your cassette. These are your storage devices. We've got also our external hard drive and cloud services that are being used. And on our session today, I've mentioned the computer technician tool, a toolkit. This is your computer technician toolkit that you need to use, and it helps a lot. It varies depending on what you need within your toolkit. This is your ESD rip thread that you use whenever you replace components within your computer. It should be your computer, your desktop, or your laptop. And also we've got our adapter cards. In most instance, this is not referred to as a NIC. There's a NIC and there's an adapter card where your monitor will be inserted, your video out connector, and your DVI connector. It also has the AGB slot connector and the heatsink and the fan for for the VGA, for the VGA fan. No, the VGA doesn't have a fan, but I'm just saying this is just it comprises of a fan within it. So this is more of your adapter card. And also we've got your power devices. This gives power to your motherboard, to your PC to switch on. If this is faulty, your desktop won't switch on. Moving on to slide 15. An optimal operating environment for a computer is clean, free of potential contaminants, and within the temperature and humidity ranges. So these guidelines to help ensure optimal computer operating performance. Do not obstruct vents of or airflow to the internal components. Also, you need to keep the room temperature between 45 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit, or between 7 and 32 degrees Celsius. Different between the two, Fahrenheit and Celsius. And also, you need to keep the humidity level between 10% to 80%. Temperature and humidity recommendations vary by computer manufacturer. Research the recommended values for computer used in extreme conditions. So this is very important for environmental concerns, more especially when you are having an environment. Luckily enough, you guys have a visual where we can just go back and rephrase. Whenever I have these slides, we can just quickly go through the visual that we have created, the building, and within an IT environment, more especially within our LAN offices, we can set a temperature room between 7 to 32. So in a working environment, normally the temperature that are set is 15 or 17. It depends on the organization that you work for. And these are important. And why is it so? Because of the workstations or laptops or desktops that you are used that are used within that office. So these are just important, let me just rephrase, fundamental processes that you should know. And also, uh, slide number 16, preventative maintenance. In terms of the software, you need to verify that installed software is current and follow the policies of the organization when installing security updates, operating system, and program updates. This is very important. In one of our sessions that we had, I even when you guys were presenting your LAN and the softwares that are needed in your LAN environment, some of you mentioned the antivirus, and I posed questions in terms of asking you or inquiring you what are the processes in terms of the security updates, like for your OS, depending on which OS platform you are using. Could be any manufacturer, could be any Microsoft, uh, Mac, or Ubuntu, depending on the platform that you are using. I've been asked what's the process in terms of the security updates, what's the procedure, how do you go about in terms of setting up these updates. Is it on a daily basis, or do you configure your devices to set these updates on a monthly basis, on a weekly basis, automatically, manually? So you need to understand those kind of things, the programs that are being used, meaning your Visual, Microsoft Office, Zoom, your Team Viewer. Does those programs require updates manually, or does it require you to configure them in an automatic setup, where each and every 2 weeks when there are updates on the cloud, it will just retract those updates and it will just automatically download? Does your Chrome require updates on a monthly basis? So those are just the software that are installed, and the policies in terms of the organization that are set to say normally our updates we run it on a weekend basis. IT people need to, you as an individual, you as a technician, need to run those updates on weekends, every second weekend of the month. It depend on the organization that you are hired. And also create a software maintenance schedule to review and install the appropriate security software and driver updates. Very important, the driver updates, as I've alluded earlier, to say now you have people who are using external hard drive, and those external hard drive are in-house organization external hard drive. So in terms of the driver updates, when do they what's the schedule in terms of them, you as an IT technician, running those updates? If maybe a certain hardware, external hardware, is corrupted, it needs to be updated. What is the process? When do you schedule it to be fixed within that time allocation? You might find out that external hard drive is important, contains very sensitive data. So what happens? What's the process? And also update the virus definition files and scan for viruses and spyware. Very important. Whenever, depending on which product you are using, in most cases you find that in most cases a virus will have a signature, and every time when a new virus becomes available, your product, depending on McAfee you are using or Symantec, would download will issue out the signatures of the current viruses that are in place. And also what it will do, it will quarantine any virus that it is exposed to. So it will update on its database, and whenever there is a new virus or similar virus, it will just detect that, okay, this is a preventative virus kind of signature, and I'll just quarantine this virus so that I could understand the syntax in terms of how this virus works or goes about. And from there, that's how it updates its definition files and continuously scan for virus and spyware. Also remove unwanted and unused programs. This is important. Well, in most organizations, you're not given that free will for you to allow to download programs. The process, the policies of the organizations are different, so you won't be able to download any programs. Also, scanning hard drives for errors and defragmented hard drives, also it helps. There are tools that does that job utility where it scan for hard drives for errors. Let's say maybe your hard drive might be faulty or defragmented hard drives. It provides that thorough service where it monitors that and um, provides a report on that. So you'll just have to do it manually and just do a troubleshooting step in terms of what you had detected and what's the next step in terms of fixing the problem that you've encountered. So that's it in terms of session one. So we'll move on to session two short. Okay, moving right along, session two, demonstrate an understanding of the use of safety measures and procedures. So the use of safety measures and procedures. What are the safety precautions? We need to observe safety rules when working inside a system and when handling computer components. Avoid electric shock or personal injury by observing the following warning. So whenever we see a warning, we need to be observant. Before removing the system unit cover, turn off the power and unplug the system power cable. Power is removed only when the power cable is unplugged. I've posed some of you this question when you were presenting your LAN network, and this is important. We need to be observant, follow safety precautions whenever working inside a system or an environment, more especially handling computer components. Moving on to slide 18, electrostatic discharge. Your computer internal components are highly susceptible to the risk of damage from electrostatic discharge, which is static electricity which occurs naturally on your body due to friction. And also, to avoid damaging your equipment, always earth yourself to your computer system before opening the computer chassis or handling any internal components. To do this, use the following procedure. You need to use an anti-static wisp, which is available at any electronic supply stores. To use it, you need to connect the strips metal alligator clip to an unpainted metal portion of your computer chassis. What do they mean by that? Let's move on to slide 20. As you can see, this is how you go about in terms of using it. You wrap yourself around with the electric wrist band, and this is a chassis. You need to click this onto the mental part, and that's where you can work with your components inside your internal components, so it won't cause electric static whenever you touch these components. So this is how you go about in terms of using a elastic reps band. uh, Safety rules. You need to select a suitable workspace. You need to avoid carpets in cool and dry areas. When you work on a carpet where static electricity is likely to be generated, make sure take anti-static measures beforehand. How to use your cloth. Do not wear a wool or synthetic cloth to work with the computer. Wear an anti-static shoes to work with the computer. Take off any jewels, a ring, bracelet, or any wristwatch before working with a computer. So these are safety rules that you need to adhere to. Handling of components. You need to keep any component in an anti-static bag until you actually install it to the computer. Also, you need to store or carry any component, place it in an anti-static bag. Turn off and disconnect all peripherals, meaning your if you using your computer, peripherals may refer to your keyboard, your mouse. Disconnect them. Do not disassemble parts other than those specified in the procedure. Label any cable connectors before disconnecting. Note where the connector goes and in what position it was installed. This happens a lot when you first do not label. You just take out everything and just put it on the table. Your screws, your your parts that you have used, and by the end of that process that you have done, you don't remember where, in terms of the cables or any screws, where did you disconnect them to. So you just have to label everything so that you remember. And also you need to take care when connecting or disconnecting cables. A damaged cable can cause a short in the circuit. You need to understand the types of fires that are encountered. Yes, I even touched base on this on the PowerPoint presentation, to say I touched base on it, and I said I will explain further. So, the National Fire Protection Association published a list of several different fire classifications. So there are three types of fire to be potentially found inside a modern data or computing center, which are type A, B, and C. So, type A, fires with combustible materials as its source, such as wood, cloth, paper, rubber, and many plastic. Type B, which are fires in flammable liquids, oils, greases, tars, oil-based paints, liqueurs, and flammable gases. And type C are fires that involve electrical equipment. Let's look into uh, uh, the image that I've touched. So these are all your types. We've got type A, B, C up until to K, D, and K. So as you can see, there's an image. These are your ordinary combustibles: wood, paper, and cloth, etc. B, it's your flammable liquids, which is your grease, oil, paint, and solvents. And C, these are your electrical equipment, electrical panel, motor wiring, and etc. And then D, you've got combustible metal, which is your magnesium, aluminum, etc. And then K, these are your commercial cooking equipment, which is cooking oils, animal fats, and vegetable oils. So there's a how do we know in terms of what can we use in terms of, whenever we are exposed to this kind of fires. So in slide 28, we've got safety fire products. For type A, we can only use water, foam spray, and ABC power. How can we see that these is water, foam spray, and ABC power onto this fire safety products? You can see the colors that are within these extinguishers. Fire extinguishers, we've got red, I think it's yellow, blue. I think is it yellow or white? Because I can see there's a yellow. Not quite sure. I think this is white or light or yellow. Um, foam spray. I'm not quite sure. The colors are not clear. So there's blue, black, yellow, light yellow, and red. So for type A, we can use water, foam spray, ABC power, or wet chemical. We cannot use carbon dioxide. And for type B, which are flammable liquids, we can't use water, but we can use foam spray, we can use ABC power, we can use carbon dioxide, but we cannot use wet chemical. And type C, we can't use water and foam spray, we can only use ABC power, which are your flammable gases. So for wires, electrical components that you are likely to face within your environment, we can only use ABC power and carbon dioxide. And for cooking oil, we can only use wet chemical. So let's move back to our slide. I think it's slide 24. Of course, choosing the correct fire suppressant. Choose the correct type of suppressant for your computing or your data room application. A fire suppressant that is capable of suppressing A class, B class, and C class is preferable. I've got exit signs, fire exit signs. This is what I need you to implement in your office building. So all your fire extinguishers, I want you to do it, include it, so that you know your architecture by head. So these are the first things that you seek whenever you go to a building. So whenever they give you an architecture of a building, these are the things that you ask about, you inquire, if I may put the correct term, you inquire about, so that you would know uh, what to happen and who's the person responsible whenever there is fire. Normally in organization, there's a person who is responsible, and he or she has a team, and those team members are delegated. They know if there's a safety or a fire that maybe a building catches fire, they know what to do. And also they do these trainings once a month, where you'll just hear sirens within a office building and you'll have to follow the process. So they just uh, go about in terms of making employees aware of what needs to happen. Moving on to slide 29. If a fire starts in the office environment, the usual policy is to get everyone out as quickly as possible and call the fire brigade. There are many times when a fire is discovered at an early stage and it is considered controllable. In such a situation, an attempt to extinguish the fire using fire extinguishing equipment should only be made if sufficient training has been provided on using fire extinguishers. An escape route has been established. On your diagrams, there's no escape route, so you need to provide that. However, fires can spread very quickly, and if the situation escalates and becomes uncontrollable, then it must be abandoned immediately. We've went through this slide. Moving on to slide 29. You need to be sure you have the correct fire extinguishers for the type of fire and know how to use it. That's on slide 28. You need to go through that and understand. You need to maintain your exit. There's no exit in your I'm still emphasizing this because of there's no exit. And I've given you a chance to come forward and tell me what do you need in your office building, and no one got to mention that. So you need to leave yourself a way out in case of the fire gets out of control. Have a backup person standing by whenever possible in case assistance is needed. You need to stop and leave the area immediately if you experience any physical problems such as dizziness and or difficulty breathing. And if fire extinguishers has been used and is rechargeable, have it serviced before returning it to the original location. So you need to know these fire products or the symbols found on the fire extinguishers at what they mean. So now you know based on the colors. So if you see a black, you see that this is a carbon dioxide. And in most organization, I'm not quite sure, since you are working with electrical components, I'm thinking your blue and your black, which is your APC power and carbon dioxide fire extinguishers, will be placed. So that's my thinking. You need to check integral learners, please check on where your fire extinguishers are located. Just check on the colors, which one is it, ABC or carbon dioxide. On slide 29, electrical hazards and fire precautions. The use of any item of electrical equipment contains a risk element due to potentially dangerous threat of electrical shock. Computer systems and associated hardware such as printers, scanners, network hubs, and other devices are commonly mains powered and as such are a potential hazard. The risk of electrical shock applies to normal users of the equipment and also to those undertaking repairs or upgrades. So the display screen, it's a well-defined character of adequate size and spacing. It have a stable image, have easily adjustable brightness and contrast. So these are just standard procedures that you need to follow in terms of the display screen. So your display screen, it should be well defined in terms of characters that are used. It should be adequate size and spacing. So everything, characters that are displayed into your screen should be a well defined character. So I'm not expecting one character which has a bigger font and the other one not the correct size with the other one, and the spacing, everything is just clustered in between. So this these are just your standard procedure for how a screen should be displayed. And a stable image should be intact. Like for instance, as you can see, the screen, everything is stable. You don't find yourself that after some time everything is becoming blurred, and everything is moving in circles. So you find that the electrical hazard, or this black, uh this, is it brown, dark brown, it's moving in circles. You find that it becomes white, and the image changes. Now everything is just obscured, and those kind of things. And also the brightness, everything at contrast is at the standard level. Moving on to slide 30. Before opening your computer case and changing your upgrading parts, you need to follow these steps. You need to fully shut down your computer, switch the power off button at the back of the PC if you have. Turn off the power point and remove the power cable. Remove other cables like your printers cables and monitors. Wait a few minutes before proceeding to open the computer, because power stick can still be running in the PC even after the power cable has been removed. You need to discharge the static electricity. This is a crucial step. It is important that you touch your hands to a non-electrical metal surface before touching any other components inside the computer. After opening the case of the PC, this will prevent a static shock from frying the computer circuits. And also, uh, electrostatic discharge. So an ESD is the sudden flow of electricity between two objects caused by contact, an electrical short, or dielectric breakdown. ESD can be caused by a build-up of static electricity, by turbocharging, or by electrostatic induction. So the causes of ESD, one of the causes is static electricity. Static electricity is often generated through turbocharging, the separation of electric charges that occurs when two materials are brought into contact and then separated. Examples of turbochargers include walking on a rug, rubbing a plastic comb against dry hair, rubbing a balloon against a sweater, ascending from a fabric car seat, or removing some types of plastic packaging. That is an example of turbocharging. Um, the friction between two materials result in turbocharging, thus creating a difference of electric potential that can lead to an ESD event. Also, you need to prevent ESD damage. You need to observe the following precautions: wear an ESD grounding strap, the one that I've showed, connected to a proper ground when handling modules. You need to keep boards in their anti-static protection bags until you are ready to install them. And lastly, do not touch pins, leads, or solder connections on the boards. So that's it in terms of session 3. So shortly I will just go through session no, that's it in terms of session 2. In a short time I'll just shortly I'll just go through session 3 with you, and that will be the last session for this unit standard. And also I'll just go through the activities, which is your formative and summative. And in our next session we'll just go through the discussions on this unit standard. Okay, let's continue off with session 3. The title for session 3 is explain environmental protection measures and procedures of a computer working environment. Working with computers. What's the risk assessment? There are regulations which requires employees to carry out a risk assessment of users' workstations, which should consider the entire workstation, including equipment and furniture, as well as the work environment, like e.g., lighting, temperature, and leg room. The tasks that are being performed at the workstation should be considered, as should any special needs of individual staff. We have what we call the display screen equipment, which is a its regulations for employees. So the health and safety display and screen equipment regulations of 1992 place a specific requirements on employees with the aim of protecting workers from the health risk associated with DSE. So these duties are also applied to the self-employed. So we need to adhere to this regulation, which is the display screen equipment. Does this refer to only a monitor? What does the display screen equipment entails? So let's look into the second paragraph. The display screen equipment means any alphanumeric or graphic display screen, regardless of the display process involved. It covers the PCs, laptops, tablets, and smartphones, as well as other methods of displaying data, such as CCTV screens. So, display screen entails graphic display screen, involve PC, laptops, tablets, smartphones, any other methods of displaying data. Also the CCTV as well. So what does this in detail says? So a user, an operator, or a worker, or a self-employed person who uses display screen equipment uses as a significant part of their normal work. The health and safety executive specify that it applies to workers who use the DSE daily for an hour or more at a time, not to infrequent users or short-term use. The eye test and the correctness eyewear must be provided by the employer free of charge if required. I'm just saying out this aloud. Are we aware of such regulations at works places? You need to find out. A test should be carried out by an orthometric optician if a DSE user requests it. Employers can offer vision screening test, but they cannot prevent a user opting for a full eyesight test instead, where the test shows the need for a corrective eyewear specifically for DSE use. And to comply with the regulations, the employer must fund the basic cost. So I'm giving you tips in terms of the DSE, the regulations. Now, if you knew, what have you done since you are working 8 hours a day? Are you getting breaks? Are you applying these regulations, or you just ignoring it? Maybe the organization that you are working for are not preaching enough about these such things concerning your health. Let's continue further in terms of training. Training and information must be provided to users and operators, explaining the risk of DSE use and how to arrange the workstation safely. It should also cover what to do if the user develop any work-related health problems. Regular breaks. Breaks aim to avoid risk of postural fatigue by introducing periodic short breaks or changes of activity away from the DSE. I'm hoping you are applying these at workplaces. I'm hoping your your organizations are preaching or are educating you with such. Let's continue further on to slide 37. Display screen equipment risk assessment should also consider those factors that may contribute to repetitive strain injuries, such as sitting in the same position for a longer period, awkward positioning of the wrist and hand in relation to the keyboard, high workload for a prolonged period of time, and also excessive use of the mouse. Moving on to slide 38. This should be table and separate from the screen to allow the user to adopt a comfortable working position. Have a space in front to provide support for the hands or arms of the user. Have a matte surface. Have clearly legible symbols on keyboard. So we do not accept keyboards that are not legible for us to use. Meaning some keyboards are loosened up. When you press K, L pops up. When you press P, Q pops up. So we don't use, you are allowed to say, no, I'm not using this kind of keyboard. Moving on to slide 39. The work surface should provide adequate space for the user. So now, since it's COVID, work organization applying these regulations: provide adequate space for the user, have a low reflective surface, be of adequate size to allow the screen keyboard to be flexible arranged, have a stable adjustment document holder which should be at the same level as the screen and at the same viewing distance. The workstation or environment. The workstation must do the following: provide sufficient space for the user or the operator to alter position comfortably. Lighting must be adequate with suitable contrast between the screen and the background. Glare and reflections on the screen should be avoided. Windows should be fitted with adjustable coverings to alter the daylight level. Did you know about this? Let's continue further. Slide 41. So we are done uh, with the regulations. So let's move in terms of handling computer components. So in our next session, we'll just get into deeper of this regulations. If there's anything on your side that you want to note down regarding this, you can just note down, and in our next session we'll just have a discussion on it. So handling computer components, the internal components take that make a computer do all those intricate and most intensious process are delicate pieces of electronics and must be handled with care to prevent damage. It should be clean and clear before working on your computer or handling any new internal components. Wash and dry your hands thoroughly to remove any oil or other substances. If transferred to the computer sensitive electronic parts, this residue can cause malfunction or even failure. Keep food and drink away from computers to prevent crumbs and spills, and a clear spot on your desk or floor to work without constriction. If working on your floor, vacuum first to remove any dirt, scrums or lint from working their way into your computer. Disconnect. You can still receive a shock when working inside the case. Even if your computer is completely powered down, you need to unplug the computer from the wall before installing or uninstalling any components within your case. Also, you need to remove any cables that connect the tower to other accessories such as the monitor, printer, or external modem. Freeing your computer tower from everything connected to it will allow you freer access to the inside and greater range of motion. You need to remove the battery from your laptop and let it cool down completely before opening the case. Moving on to slide 43. Proper storage. When storing your computer components, remember the three things that are most damaging to computers: heat, dust, and moisture. You need to store your computer components in a sturdy, well cushioned box away from the heating source and moist areas. Direct sunlight can cause the temperature inside a closed box to rise quickly, so find a dark, cool, and dry area for your storage. Need to keep your computer's electronic parts safe and in good condition. So this is the proper handling of a computer components, which is your RAM, sorry, random access memory. This is how you handle it, and this is the incorrect way in terms of how you handle your RAM. And the last slide, the computer peripherals. A peripheral is a device that is connected to a host computer but not part of it. It expands the host capabilities but does not form part of the core computer architecture. So the three types of peripherals: we've got the input, output, and storage. Input is used to interact with or send data to the computer, which is your mouse, keyboards. Output, it provides output to the user from the computer, which are monitors and printers, monitors. And whenever I see a monitor, I remember the is it the DSE or the ESD regulate. And lastly, you've got the storage, which stores data processed by the computer, which involve your hard drives and your flash drives. So that's it in terms of this unit standard 114636. So let's go through the learner workbook. Uh, learner workbook. Session 1, Activity 1. You need to demonstrate an understanding of the use of preventative maintenance measures and procedures. Activity 2, what causes a computer to heat up? And activity 3, demonstration knowledge of covers preventative measure for the cause of computer hardware maintenance. And activity 4, you need to demonstrate an understanding of the use of safety measures and procedures. And activity 5, you need to explain your understanding of handling of the computer components. And activity 6, you need to explain the safety measures for different types of fires and which applies to the computer environments. And activity 7, you need to explain environmental protection measures and procedures of a computer working environment. Activity 8, you need to give an explanation which covers handling of computer components. Activity 9, what are the examples of computer peripheral devices? And that will be the last activity for your learner workbook, which is your formative assessment. Let's move on to your summative assessment. Uh, Summative assessment. Moving on to summative assessment. Um, let's see. Summative assessment. Number 1, demonstrate knowledge of preventative maintenance procedures. Task 2, what is your understanding of the uninterrupted power supply, UPS? Session 3, task 3, demonstrate knowledge of potential hazards and safety procedures related to computer environment. Task 4, illustrate the demonstration of ESD and precautions for it. Task 5, you need to describe the cause of ESD. Task 6, give a detailed description of proper handling of computer components. And task 7, give a detailed description of storage and handling computer peripherals. And that's the last question for your summative assessment. So we've covered both your summative and formative assessment. And if there are areas which you would like clarity on, please just take notes, and on our session we will just go through those items one by one, and I'll provide clarity on them. And if it relates to questions, I'll give clarity. And if it refers to the learner guide, which is the information that is in the power slide, then I will kindly provide clarity on that. So I hope you have watched the video from the start to the finish and you enjoyed yourself. Now you've got a better understanding in terms of the regulation. That was my key moment. Your display screen equipment, this is my key uh, this is my key part or point or topic within this learner guide or this unit standard. So this is my highlight because it's something that most of us go through at our workplaces. So I hope it enlightened you as well and you are much more intrigued in terms of what needs to follow, and you now know, you are informed, and we will use it better going forward, when we escalate the ladder. Thank you guys. See you in our next session.